the decision that created the Cold War. When the Second World War ended, the world expected peace. Not perfection, not harmony, just an end. Cities were destroyed, economies collapsed, and tens of millions were dead. But people believed that after so much suffering, something better would follow. For a brief moment, it felt possible. Former enemies stood together. Alliances that had survived unimaginable pressures still existed. The idea of cooperation didn't seem naive yet. But history rarely turns on optimism. It turns on decisions. And one decision, made quietly in the aftermath of victory, ensured that peace would never fully arrive. A world waiting for a new beginning. In 1945, the war was over, but the future was unclear. Europe was broken. Governments had collapsed. Entire populations were displaced. Someone had to decide what came next. The United States emerged from the war economically strong, relatively untouched at home. The Soviet Union emerged victorious, but deeply scarred, having lost millions. Both saw the same ruins, but they imagined very different futures. This difference mattered more than anyone realized at the time. Allies, but only on paper. During the war, cooperation had been necessary. Trust was optional. Survival was not. The United States and the Soviet Union fought the same enemy, but never shared the same vision. One believed stability came from open markets, political freedom, and rebuilding quickly. The other believed stability came from control, security, and never again being invaded from the West. Neither side thought of itself as aggressive. Both thought they were being cautious, and that was the problem. Fear was the real enemy. The Soviet Union had been invaded twice in a single generation. Millions of civilians died. Cities disappeared. Entire regions were erased. From Moscow's perspective, history had taught one lesson. If you do not control your borders, someone else will decide your fate. The United States saw a different danger. Economic collapse, radical movements, and authoritarian expansion had led directly to global war. From Washington's perspective, allowing instability to spread was just as dangerous. Both sides believed they were preventing the next catastrophe. They just disagreed on how. The moment of choice, the decision that created the Cold War, wasn't a single document. It wasn't one speech. It was a choice to divide influence instead of sharing responsibility. Europe would not be rebuilt together. It would be rebuilt separately. Lines were drawn, not immediately visible, not officially declared, but very real. Some countries would be shaped by Western systems. Others would be shaped by Soviet control. And once those systems took hold, reversing them became nearly impossible. Germany? The symbol of division nowhere was this clearer than in Germany. A country defeated, occupied, and broken. At first, it was governed collectively, in theory. In reality, each occupying power began shaping its zone differently. Different laws, different economic policies, different futures. What began as temporary administration slowly became permanent separation. Germany didn't choose to be divided. It was decided for it. And the world watched as a former ally became a warning. From cooperation to suspicion, communication didn't stop overnight. Meetings continued. Agreements were signed. But trust quietly vanished. Every action was questioned. Every aid package was suspected. Every reform was interpreted as a threat. When the United States offered economic assistance to rebuild Europe, it saw generosity. The Soviet Union saw influence. When the Soviet Union tightened control over Eastern Europe, it saw protection. The West saw expansion. No missiles were launched. no declarations were made, yet the conflict had already begun. The birth of a Cold War. This was not a war of soldiers. It was a war of systems, of ideas, of influence. Both sides avoided direct conflict, not because they trusted each other, but because they feared what would happen if they didn't. Instead, battles were fought indirectly, through politics, through economics, through proxy wars in distant countries. The world became a chessboard, and nations became pieces. Living in a divided world for decades, people lived with an invisible tension. There were no front lines, yet everyone felt the pressure. Cities were rebuilt with bunkers beneath them. Schools practiced drills for disasters no one wanted to imagine. Governments planned for conflicts they hoped would never come. The Cold War didn't dominate daily life loudly. It existed quietly, in headlines, in speeches, in the unspoken understanding that everything rested on restraint. Why the Cold War never truly ended. When the Soviet Union collapsed, many believed the Cold War was over. In a way, it was. But the systems it created didn't disappear. Military alliances remained. Strategic distrust survived. Old habits proved difficult to abandon. The world had learned to think in blocks, in spheres of influence, in us and them. That mindset didn't vanish with a flag. The decision's lasting impact. The decision to divide the post-war world solved a short-term problem. It prevented immediate chaos, but it created a long-term reality of permanent tension. Instead of one world learning to rebuild together, humanity chose parallel futures. Each side convinced the other was dangerous. Each side convinced itself it was acting defensively. And for decades, the world balanced on that belief. A quiet lesson from history. The Cold War teaches us something uncomfortable. That peace is not guaranteed by victory. That shared enemies do not create shared values. And that decisions made to feel safe in the moment can shape generations. No one intended to create a divided world, but intention has never been history's safeguard. Closing, the Second World War ended in celebration, but the peace that followed was fragile, because one decision chose separation over trust, control over cooperation, fear over uncertainty. The Cold War wasn't inevitable, it was chosen, and the world has been living with that choice ever since.